Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you all so much for being with us. If you work at an organization that is successfully hit with ransomware attack, this is an example of the kind of ransom note you might find on your computer system. This is a ransom note left, I believe, by a cyber criminal group called Aura Evil. That is behind some of the most prominent ransomware attacks of the past few years, including those on software provider Kaseya and the meat marketing process, JBS Foods. This note reportedly was part of Kaseya's attack and was deployed against some of their customers. There is a lot of information, as you all can see on here on this page, but I want to focus on the line that says you have 2 days. Right under that deadline, it says you pay, $5 million ransom. And it says, quote, if you do not pay on time, the price will be doubled. So Mr. Wales, this is fairly a common ransom tactic used by attackers, put pressure on its victims to pay quickly, correct?
I think my colleague from the FBI can probably describe this in a little bit more detail, but that, generally, yes. I mean, this is what cyber criminals are going to do to try to extort money out of victims.
And so does the FBI, would you like to comment in regards to that? Because I think the timeline and like the counting down.
Sure. I appreciate the question and appreciate the opportunity. Certainly to Brandon's point, we would agree with that. The bottom line is it is an extortion tactic that is heavily leveraged based on time. We have unique data in our holdings based on the number of these that we work that show how long we can potentially negotiate and what type of reductions, and that's information that we're happy to share with victims should they get hit by a certain ransomware variant.
An assistant director and Mr. Wales, part of that threatening is not just a deadline and doubling, but they also threaten to leak the stolen data, make news of the attack public, or destroy the key to pressure victims to pay, right? So, Assistant Director, in your view, should companies pay the ransom immediately?
Let me split that question into two, right? Ransomware groups are moving to a double extortion model where they exfil data and then they hold it and then they encrypt. The exfil of data is used as additional leverage for a double extortion option for them to hold additional leverage over the company or the affected organization. So our position on paying ransoms has remained the same, which is this. We do not recommend paying the ransom because it fuels the criminal enterprise, but we do understand that it's a business decision for any corporation or entity about whether to move forward with paying that ransom. The only thing that we would collectively ask as the federal government is that we be notified as soon as possible when that ransom is paid so we can do our best to track the money.
Director Inglis, one of the things that I find here in Congress in the 3 years I've been here is there seems to be always emphasis on new laws and criminalizing, right? When we already, I believe, have some strong legislation now on these types of attacks and criminal activity. Do you think that it's really about resources and more funding and investment in enforcement, or do we really need new legislation to try to attack this?
Thank you for the question. I think that your question goes to the heart of the matter, which is that we need a comprehensive approach. We need to double down on investing in resilience and robustness across technology, people, making sure they have the right skills, and doctrine, making sure we've got the right roles and responsibilities. Do we, in fact, make it such that a transgressor needs to get past all of us to get at one of us? We need to make sure that we double down on the proactive defense of these systems to detect an anomaly at the earliest possible moment, which then, if we fail in those first two pieces, which should have a determinative effect, we're left with responding to an incident and perhaps chasing, finding the criminal, bringing them to justice. But if we only did that third bit, right, we would find ourselves in an impossible tail chase. So we have to do all three of those.
And, Director Inglis, one of the things that I know happens even in kind of local government and trying to enforcement, is there where to measure, okay, we invested this much in your department or division, and the result became, are we able to really track that the result of investing, and Build Back Better, what we have is millions of dollars investment in combating this issue. how are we going to be able to measure like it's actually working so that colleagues can see that we need to do more in this way?
Yeah, that's a
instead
great
of
question.
just
That's a great
continuing-
question, too. During my time in the private sector, I was often asked the question of how much money do you need to properly defend this organization, cyber defend this organization, which is typically not the best first question. The best first question is, do I understand what the role that digital infrastructure plays in my business? Is that an appropriate role? Am I taking risks that I don't want to actually spend time and money to secure because it's not a risk that I think is worthwhile? Have I balanced, right, my risks such that I've done the necessary preparation, it's resilient and robust? Am I actually following what the system's actually doing such that only that last bit of, then can I detect an anomaly, some transgressor inside the system? You have to first then think about what the purpose of the system is. Have you balanced your investments across that? If you've done both of those things, then you can ask, do I need further dollars to buy down risk attendant to something that I have determined is an essential risk and I've determined I haven't been able to secure through resilience, proactive defense, or pursuit?
Oh, thank you so much. Very insightful. I yield.